All right. Well, hey, everybody. Happy holidays. We're getting ready for all the different things that are going to be going on in the next few weeks. And my name is Sonny Grint, and I'm excited to be here with you. We are going to make fun. We're going to make some what I'm calling drink garters, but basically some cute little ruffles that you can put on your, I know you guys have been at parties or at gatherings where it's like you have 3 water bottles lined up and you're like, which one's mine? So instead of just putting something on top, have something fun like this. So these are little drink garters. I also wanted to show you, you don't have to use them just on water bottles or on regular glasses. I just wrapped mine twice. And again, it's a really cute little way to let people know whose glass is whose, right? Or and then this one, I'm going to zoom way in or pull it up here so you can see. You can see there, I did some little decorative stitches. You could put names, you could do all sorts of things with that. So it's really kind of fun, easy project, something that you can still do. There's still plenty of time to make these. So I'm so happy that you're here. I see Kathy's from Los Angeles. I see a few other people that are here. Please welcome and excited to be here. Pardon me, what I do want to, Carly's here helping me today. Carly will be in the chat. So if you have anything, put it in the chat. If I don't see what your question is, she'll ask those questions of me. So don't hesitate if you have a question or if you want me to show something again, please go ahead and let her know and she will let me know. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. This project, okay, so this project, and I'm sorry, I got to take a quick drink of water. It's so dry here. I'm coming to you from Nashville today. I don't know about you guys, but I every time I breathe in real quick and I get a little tickle. So pardon me for just one moment. And I realized I should have been using one of my water bottles with my drink garter on it. So basically, super easy project. You only need a couple things. The first thing that you need is, and I'm going to grab everything, hopefully, so I can show you all at once. So all you need is a 2-inch by 14-inch piece of fabric. And I love that Michael's, I don't know if you guys realize that Michael's is carrying fabric. They have some in their stores, but also a lot online. Carly's been having fun going through picking out fabrics for our projects for next year. So really kind of cool. It's just a 2-inch by 14-inch piece. So you can get about 3 of these off of one swipe of fabric. So off of one across the grain of fabric. So you can make them a little smaller, make them a little bigger. It is up to you, but that's where I'm going to start with here. You also want to have 5 inches of elastic. And I use about a 1/2 inch elastic, but make sure it has a really nice stretch to it. See how I've got a really good stretch to that fabric or to that elastic. So make sure it has a nice stretch to it. And then the last thing you need is a button. And I'm actually, I don't know if you can see this, we're going to sew on. Some of you maybe have been to my classes before. I love having, putting on buttons with my sewing machine. And so I've had people ask the question before that, it's easy to do 2 holes, but how you do 4 holes. So I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. So those are the things you need. And of course, the last 2 things you need is I'm going to use a serger. So I am going to use a serger. Let me get one that you can see a little bit better. To do a rolled edge. It's going to put a real pretty little, see that nice pretty little rolled edge on the outside of my fabric. So we're going to start with doing that on my serger, and then we're going to end with doing a buttonhole, sewing on elastic, and putting on our button on the sewing machine. I'm very fortunate today. I'm working with our heavy duty models. Our heavy duty serger is really great, easy to work with. And also it goes through this fabric just wonderfully. And then I'm also using our computerized heavy duty 6700C. I want to say that slowly. If you are looking for a new machine or a new serger or a machine or a serger, these are great models to start with. So Michaels has these. They have them online in many of their stores. So take a look. These are really great machines to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to flip over to my serger. I have already set up my serger for a rolled edge. Real quick, Carly, I'm going to ask a question. So maybe in the chat, you can let me know. Have any of you actually taken classes with me before? Just yes, no, just real quick, because we've done serger classes for Michaels that are up on YouTube. So Kathy, I see yes. Some of you maybe know. Take a look. We did a great class on different techniques. So Tina, yes, that's great. So basically, take a look at those classes on how to set up your machine for a rolled edge, because we have done that. I didn't want to, bore everyone with that again, but I'm going to remind you. So if you are taking notes, you might want to take a little note here. This is a 3-thread stitch. You're going to use your upper looper, lower looper, and the right needle on your serger. And if you forget this, look in your manual, it'll show that. And then the other thing, so let me flip over. Hopefully I get the right camera here for us. So this is my serger, and you can see if I turn the hand wheel here, I only have one needle in, so I only have the one needle that's showing. And then the other thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this kind of off camera, so hopefully you can see this a little bit. And now I'm going to flip over, because what I have now done is, so that's this green, the kind of reddish, and then the yellow. But when you're setting up for a rolled edge, you're going to take that lower loop retention, that's this one over here, and you're going to make it higher than what it normally is. And then your upper looper, you're going to make lower. Can you all see that? So I've got this one up at 7, this one down at 2. So those are the couple things you need to know when doing a rolled edge. All right, so that's what you need to know. So now what I'm going to try to do is, here I've got my little piece of fabric, and you're going to sew along one of the long edges. All right, so we're going to sew along one of the long edges. And the other thing that is going to be super important, everybody, is see how, oh, I know it's hard to see because my hand is right there. Can you kind of see how I've got my finger right there? I'm holding this thread tail. Can you see how I'm holding that thread tail? It's important you do that. And I think maybe I can get my hand really low. When you start sewing, because this little thread tail, it can flip up and actually catch in your serged area. So you don't want to do that. So I'm just going to sew one. The other thing that I know it's a little hard to see just because of the angle, but I am really not cutting anything right now. I'm just letting it go right along the edge. And the other thing I'm going to say is when you get to this end, a lot of people will take this serged piece and swing it around the front to cut. So For Kathy and for Tina, for both of you. You know, that's a no-no for me because I've cut my fabrics before, but now look at that. I've got that nice little, very nice little edge. Now, when Carly and I were setting up for this, I started with my rolled edge, and I think you can see this is not actually a very nice rolled edge on this side. Can you see how I call them pokies? Can we see that, Carly? Yeah, you can kind of see how the thread is kind of poking out. So if you ever have that thread poking out like that, and I'll bring it up to here too. Now you can see it even more against my red jacket. What's happening is it's a softer fabric, so it doesn't have as much sizing and it's not pulling in as well on a rolled edge. So what you can do, again, take a couple notes here. What you can do is the first thing I started with is I brought the stitches closer together. So it's actually closer together than it was over here. And you can really see that on that little picture, right? Further apart, closer together. I still, though, am getting some of those little pokies out. So this may sound a little odd, but I'm actually wanting to cut more, right? So I'm going to actually move my blade. So I'm actually have more fabric. So there's more fabric to roll. Velvet fabric strip. You know what, Kathy? I don't remember having a velvet fabric strip, but you certainly could. You could do a rolled edge on velvet. So with that, you would just have to test. You would just have to test. And I got to say, I did write this. So, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't say anything, make a change on that. But yes, you can do rolled edge on velvet. That's for sure. If it is a stretch velvet, remember, you can use your differential feed if it's a stretch velvet to push it back together. I would start, if you're not as familiar with sergers, I would start on a cotton and then work your way to velvet. I'm sorry about that, Kathy. I should have paid attention to that. I don't have any velvet to show you here today. So once you get both sides, both long edges finished, right? So you get both long edges finished, you're going to sew on one short edge. All right. So we're going to then sew on one short edge. So you're going to end up with a piece that looks like this. So you've got one short edge, you've got the long edges and one empty edge. Y'all see that? This is your first step. So besides, asking about the rolled edge on velvet, are there any questions about rolled edging? Like I said, test. If you get pokies, bring your stitches closer together. And the other thing is, again, a little bit more fabric being rolled under will make a difference. All right. So any other, I'm able to watch here for a minute. We got a small class today, so please don't hesitate to ask any questions for us. All right. I'm not seeing anything pop up. So I think we're okay so far. All right. So to this point, and you saw how quick it was for me to do the one side. These are super fast to work with. We're now going to go ahead and go over to our sewing machine. And this again, this is the 6700C. This is one of my favorite machines to work with because it's not only is it computerized, it has a lot of variety of stitches, but it has just some nice features to it. So I really like this. So I'm going to flip over to my machine over here. And what we're going to do next is we actually are going to create, and can you still hear me okay, Carly? Mm-hmm. Okay, because my computer's a little further away today, so I want to make sure you all can hear me. We're going to make a buttonhole right on this edge. So we're going to make a buttonhole right on this edge. Now, I'm going to make my buttonhole like across the fabric. So it's going to go this way. One of the cool things about this particular heavy duty is it does have this great buttonhole foot. And you'll notice I have a 2-hole button in back. So I've already got that put in there. And with that button there, it's going to know, the machine's going to know the exact size that I need to make my button hole for this button. All right. So it is a snap-on, snap-off foot. So I'm just going to put that there. I'm going to bring my buttonhole foot. I like to kind of put it on from the back, because that way I can see it a little bit better. So you can see how that snaps on. And you know, I'm going to go up just a little bit. So then I can come down just a little bit. So, oh, whoa, not that far. Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. All right. So there we go. Because what I want you to see is here's my foot. There's a little one buttonhole on the main screen over here, and that's this guy. So I'm just going to touch that, and that's my buttonhole stitch. And so when I come back, there are a couple tips I'm going to give you on the buttonholes. All right, so a couple little tips. The first thing is I always use a tearaway stabilizer, no matter what I'm sewing my buttonhole on. It'll come off very easily, even if when I'm doing a garment. So even if I'm doing a garment, I will actually put a tearaway stabilizer underneath, even if I have a interfacing it. So always use that tearaway stabilizer underneath. And slide this in. The other thing that, oh, when I touch it, no, I had it here. I did a lot of playing around here. So hopefully you can see here. So I tested my buttonhole, and you can see it's a nice buttonhole. If you want, you can make it closer together, but do a test on your buttonhole. It's going to be super important. I'm just a little ways away from the edge. It isn't, this is one of the most fun things about a project like this, everybody, is nothing is so particular that it's going to hurt if you kind of mess around a little bit. Oh, and so here we go. So now the last piece to make our buttonhole work is I just pulled down this little buttonhole guide. You can see it says push, and I push it down and it goes behind where the buttonhole foot has this little piece, and then it's going to sew back and hit the back one and then come forward. So let's, no, this is a pretty big button for this. So let's get started. And it's going to go backwards first, and I am going to just snip that thread. All right, so I'm going to go backwards first. You'll see. Oh yeah, you can see that pretty well. And then it's going to come forward. Notice that back piece just hit. It's going to come back. It's going to hit up front. And now it starts to do that, the side of the button. And it hits the back. It's going to come forward again. And I am going to stop for just a moment. And what I'm just going to turn around here for a moment. The reason why I wanted to do that, I wasn't super explicit to say, watch how that buttonhole moves. But with the 6700, and again, on your machines at home, or if you're looking for a machine, when a buttonhole, the beads, we call them the sides of the buttonhole, both are done the same direction, it looks more consistent. So I love that this particular machine, it comes forward and backwards and sews the beads in the same direction. So take a look at that for your machines, either at home or if you're looking for a new machine. So check out the buttonholes for that. All right, so let's continue on. So again, it's doing the bead, the right side of the buttonhole backwards. There we go. So it was a little bit crooked with where I placed my buttonhole. Let me zoom out just a little bit here. I'll try, I won't try to zoom so quickly as last time. I kept pulling it over to this side, but I didn't do a great job. If I was doing this at home, guys, what I would do is I probably would have taken my practice one over here that I messed around with, right? And I would have measured exactly where I needed to be, but that's okay. All right. So now it's going to take that off. And in the instructions, trim that. In the instructions to actually make your cut in the middle of the buttonhole. And I did not prepare super well, but here I actually, sometimes you're lucky. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pin, P-I-N. I'm going to drop that pin on the floor. And I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to go like this. So can you see how that pin is inside of where the bar tack is? Can you all see that? Because that will help me so I don't cut through the end of my buttonhole. I'm going to do that over here too. All right. So now that I have that done, I would have much finer tip scissors, but this is what I have right now. And you're just going to be a little, we see what's going on here. Let me zoom out just a little bit more so you can see, maybe get a little bit better light. Harley, are we okay with that? Can we see that okay? Yep. Okay, cool. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of nip in this area. And said I need a much finer tip scissors for this. There we go. And then by going very carefully, I'm going to go right up to that end. And I'm going to go right up to this end. And this is where you need a pair of those brand new Singer. Has some really great new scissors. But can you see that? So now I didn't have to worry about going right to that end. And there is my buttonhole. Pretty easy, right?
Can you use a seam ripper for that, or is it better to use scissors?
So the question came up. So come back here. Question came up, can you use a seam ripper for this? Yes, you certainly can. The trick is, again, using those pins at the end, because the seam ripper will stop at the pin. So that's what's important. So whether you are using scissors or seam ripper, either way works. All right. So once I have that, I'm going to go ahead. Pardon me. And we're going to go ahead and just go across this edge. I may be doing this out of order, but you can do this really any way that you want to. But this way you kind of can cut and make sure you got things in the right place. So at this point, let's go back to my serger. And let's go right along this edge. Probably my hand was all in the way for that. And this is where I did put in the things that you needed to bring, basically what you need. If you have a phrase stop or a fabric sealant, you want to put that on this edge, on those little edges, because that way they won't come off. It won't come out. All right. So now back to our sewing machine. And with that, I realized why needed to do this in a different order. I'll explain here in just a moment. We are now going to put on our elastic. And with our elastic, you're just going to use your regular sewing foot. So I'm going to make sure that that snaps on. But the other thing that's important is what stitch you're going to use for this. So what stitch you're going to use. So I am going to come over here and try to zoom way in. And then so there's our buttonhole. And up here. There we go. All right. And can you all see this stitch? It's stitch number 6 on my heavy duty here. It has little dashes with the zigzag. This is called a multiple zigzag stitch. This is really wonderful for putting on elastic. And so I'm gonna choose that stitch, but then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 things. So I'm going to move up. So hopefully you can see this. Is you can see stitch number 6 with the stitch length. So this is how long this stitch is. I'm going to take that really super close together because I want to use that to hold my elastic at the beginning. After I take a few stitches at that length, then I'm going to take it back up to 1. All right, so this is where take your stitch really close together to start with. And then after you get a few stitches in, we're going to go all the way up to 1. Okay. So let's go back. And I'm going to come down just a little bit on my machine. And I do realize that that is way too close. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. So zoom out. All right. So this is where I said, oh, I realized what I did incorrectly. So let me explain. I should have put the buttonhole on the side that was already done. I should have had my buttonhole here. And the reason is when you put on elastic like this, so we're going to start elastic, we're going to place it underneath the fabric and pull and do our multiple zigzag stitch over the top. By doing that, sometimes at the end, it gets a little, it doesn't always line up at the end properly. So I should have waited and cut off what I was doing. So I'll explain that here in just another moment. Carly, are there any questions? We're hitting things. We're doing okay, everybody. Just let us know. I think we're doing okay. I hope this is just like I said, super easy project. So I think we can do okay with this. Here we're going to do, I'm just going to. So I just took a few of those stitches at that super close stitch length. Now I'm going to take my stitches to normal, to 1. Here's the trick. So here's my elastic. And here's the trick when you're putting on elastic like this. I'm gonna really, you all see this, yeah. I'm really gonna, and I missed, I'm really gonna pull that elastic hard. So I'm gonna make sure that I pull the elastic hard from the front, but also I'm gonna pull from the back. And that's going to make it. If you don't pull from the back, here, let's do this again. Okay, so now let's see. Oh, I don't know that I still got it. Well, I have a feeling I'm not going to be giving this one to friends. I'm messing around with this a little bit. There we go. So if I only pull the elastic from the front, what happens is your needle can bend. So I'm going to hold on to my thread tails. Can we see that? So I'm going to pull from the front and the back as I start sewing. Right? So this is where I always feel like, okay. And I have had I have had people ask if I can, pin this, and it's a little tricky to pin. So usually I don't pin, but what I can do and what I have done in the past is like iron a center line. So I just press it in half. So I kind of know more where I'm lining up. Okay, so. And can you see, I'm gonna turn this a little bit so you can see that. See how it's kind of pulling up in the back? See how it's all starting to come together. So I'm stretching the front, pulling this in from the front and the back. And here we go. Just keep stopping and stretching. Sounds like a new workout. See that? Oh, I feel like it's like always comes together, right? So it's really fun. All right, so last little bits here. My hands are gonna get in the way a little bit here, guys, so please. But so there we go. There's your little elastic piece. It's just right on your garter. So that's really fun. And this is what I was meaning is I'm going to put my button here, but I can trim this off with the sergers. So that's why I did this in the opposite way. I should have put basically my buttonhole first at the edge and then my button on this end. It really doesn't matter so much, but that's the basically the whole base of our little garter. So that easy. What do you guys think? Kind of fun, right? Kind of cool. Oh, someone's got to give me something. I hope you're enjoying this because it is fast and easy. Again, you can decorate, you can use different fabrics, you can use all sorts of things. Thank you for that, Tina. I appreciate it. But it is a fun thing to do. I'm going to do the button next. And I think the last time I worked, we talked, I may have put on a button and showed you how to do the 4-hole button, but we'll do that again. So we're going to put on one button. And then we're doing great on time. So we're going to put on one button, then I'm going to show you how to do the 4-hole button. And then we're basically done, everybody. So again, if you have any questions, certainly put that in. Carly will let me know. And so here we go. Let's go back to our sewing machine. And I know that many of our Singer machines have this great little foot. It is the button sew on foot. And so it is really a great foot. The other thing that is important, so let me take this off. The other thing that is important is the feed teeth or the feed dogs that you want to drop those. So if you can watch this, you can see, did you see how they just went down? So it's important you drop the feed dogs on our 6700C. It's a little lever in back. Some of our other machines have a, oh gosh, it's a cover that you might end up using. So you might, for your machines, you might have a cover to put on it. But this is, again, one of those other really nice features of our 6700C. And so then we're going to put that down. And there's a couple different ways. You can use so there's I'm going to put our button on here. You can end up using a regular foot, but also a zigzag stitch that's very close together. With this particular machine, there is a stitch that is specifically for sewing on a button. And what happens with that is it automatically takes your stitch length to 0. And then it also the width. This is where, Carly, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more here, everybody, because I want you to see this clearly. I always start by doing my first stitch by hand, because I had to adjust that. My button was a little too far, so my first needle swing actually hit the button. And you can see it's actually hitting there too. So I'm gonna make a little adjustment, make sure I'm not gonna hit. So 1, 2, once I know that that's working, I can put the pedal to the metal and it does a little tie off at the end. And that easy to sew on your button. That's pretty easy for me. Whenever I'm traveling or something and I have to sew on a button by hand, boy, that is a really tough thing for me to do. But that's, again, when you do a 2-hole button, it's really that easy. If I have a 4-hole button, so this is my 4-hole button, I'm actually going to, for this one, to help me so you can see it a little bit easier when I move things. I actually put a piece of stabilizer behind this, and that is just fine. You can start with the back holes and move forward, or the front holes and move backwards. Does that make sense? So you can start with the back holes here and move forward, or forward and move back. It doesn't matter. I like to start with the front holes and move backwards. Everyone, unless you're using an old button, meaning like in your grandma's or your mom's or your great aunts or whoever, they have a buttonhole, a buttonhole jar. My grandma had that. Some of those buttons, the distance between the holes, it was not consistent. Today's buttons, okay, so today's buttons in general, that's why I always do it by hand, but in general, they are 3.5 millimeters in distance between each other. That's how our machines are set up, but they are consistent. So don't be as afraid to do this if you're using buttons from today. All right, so here we go. I'm going to start here and do my first swing by hand, and then there's that one. All right, and then why I like this is then all I have to do is go back and it keeps things aligned. So there's 1, 2, and go again. That's it.
Kathy asked about lining up your button right on the sheet.
Okay, so Carly just asked me your question, and so I'll answer that in just a minute, but that really is it, everybody. It is super easy, and you can see why I just never will do it by hand. So truly, when I have one more button here, when you are placing your button down, probably the most important thing, Kathy, is making sure that the actual holes of your button. So let's zoom in again. And I know, there we go. Hopefully it'll auto adjust here. And especially if I come down just a little bit more. Maybe if I just move back, just so there we go. It really is all about the holes of the button here, aligning, kind of being parallel with the back of your foot. If they're not parallel with the back of the foot, then that's why I had to kind of twist it a little bit. I had to twist my button. And now I know through experience, this is not far enough back. But what I want you to do is, well, it actually did okay. I was afraid that I wasn't far enough back. So one, pardon me, and notice how I always do that by hand. And then make that, and then just go with the foot. So always use those two first, the first swing, make sure that that is correct.
So she actually meant like
Oh, sorry.
matching up where the buttonhole is to match up that side.
Ah, pardon me again. I'm so sorry, guys. That dryness is a killer. So on something like this, actually for this little piece, because I should have, if you make your buttonhole in the center, you're going to be just fine by putting this right in the center. So really there is no, there isn't a lot of alignment for that. There we go. There really isn't a lot of alignment. But if you are on a garment, so let's say, you know, you've got several different buttonholes down like this on a garment. How do you align that? Well, then you have your back, you know, your other piece back here. What I do is I take a pin, P-I-N. So I take a pin. And I don't know where they went to. And I put it into the buttonhole. And then I just go like this and do a little piece of chalk. I just mark where the pin is on the back piece with a little bit of chalk or fabric marker or whatever. And then I know that that's going to align with where my buttonholes are on my placket. Is that what you mean, Kathy? I think that's, you know, a lot of times it's when you're doing something on a jacket or a shirt, making sure that they're aligned. So once hand sewed a button on too tight, can get the other end over the button and have it lay flat. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is if you feel like if your button is too tight on your fabric, you can always put, I will use a little toothpick. Here we go. So if it's too tight, you know, if it's too tight to your fabric, use a little toothpick and actually sew over the toothpick, and that gives enough room for it to move. So it's making it a little working when buttoned. Oh, your buttonhole is not. Yeah. So you just have to like make sure that, again, if you're putting your placket in, if you're doing that, if you need a little extra room, use that the little toothpick trick. And otherwise to align, again, making sure. And the other thing some people like to do is they like to have the buttonhole pull over a little bit, so they might put it in a little different, like not putting the pin right in the center of the buttonhole, but kind of scoot it over to where it might pull a little bit. So hopefully that's making a little sense. Hopefully. So, all right. Other questions for me? This is our last Michael's Zoom of the year for Singer. Can you believe it? My year has flown by. It's been really fun. We started with a lot of different things. I mean, so please make sure you go to the Michael's page and go to the Singer part of the Michael's page on YouTube. You're going to see a lot of fun, different things. Next year, we're going to start, Carly's actually going to do our first project, and she's got a really fun thing for working together with, you know, storage and how do you make a really cute little I guess, what did we call it, Carly?
Accessories tray.
Yeah, an accessory tray to set next to your bedside, or I've made a couple of these. I use them in my sewing room, so however you want to use those. So looking forward to that. Everybody, if there are no other questions, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I hope you had a little bit of fun. We've got the project again is going to be back up on YouTube here very soon. And if there are no other questions, Rich, I think we're good with that. Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays to you all as well. And I hope you have a really wonderful holiday season, everyone, and a happy new year too. Bye-bye.